下午场以教育活动为主题，让我们欢迎主持人国立自然科学博物馆刘德祥老师。
好，大家午安。午安。这个时间来听演讲有点挑战哦。刚刚吃饱饭，我刚刚看到有些伙伴都趴下来休息了一下哈。OK， 但是我们还是要进行，好不好？那今天下午的第一场演讲是由英国爱丁堡那个外科医学博物馆的那位Thomas Elliott 先生会给我们做个演讲。从他提供的资料，我们看到他其实当过小学老师，在非洲的坦桑尼亚也当过老师的老师哦。然后2007年开始，他就开始进到爱丁堡的动物园专门负责就是教育推广活动这部分。所以我相信他在教育的推广、教育活动的规划，我们明天还有个 workshop 关于这个主题的，相当有这个经验。那我相信他今天一定提供非常多可以给我们参考的这些内容。那我们是不是现在就以热烈的掌声来欢迎Thomas Elliott 先生 ？Welcome。
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Are we all still awake after lunch? We have a saying in the UK that often at this time in a conference it's known as the graveyard shift, which is when everyone is full with food and they start to fall asleep. So I will do my best to keep you awake this afternoon with a talk here. As has been mentioned, my background is very much education and learning for really my whole 25-year working career. In one way or another, I've been involved in education. I still think of myself as relatively new to museums, although I've been in post in Surgeons' Hall Museum in Edinburgh for 10 years now, and my job title is Head of Museum Learning and Interpretation. So later when I talk through what we do in the museum and the refurbishment we recently went through, I was always thinking in my head from an educational point of view, how can we improve what we offer to visitors from that educational point of view. Okay. So just to give you an idea of how the talk will flow, I want to start by giving you just a brief history of the organisation I work for, to give a bit of context. I won't spend too much time on the history because there's a lot in the conference manual if you want to know more detail. But I think it's important to set the scene and understand the organisation that I'm part of. I'll then go on to talk about this refurbishment of the museum. We've been reopened now for 2 years, almost exactly 2 years following the refurbishment. And then that leads directly into just some examples of the specifics of some of the learning activities and the learning programs that we can now offer. And much of it is as a direct result of the refurbishment. Prior to the refurbishment, our opportunities were very limited. So, Surgeons' Hall Museum, I wouldn't expect any of you particularly to have heard of us, but we are part of a very prestigious learning institution in itself, the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh, which is a very ancient organisation. Believe it or not, we're over 500 years old. The College of Surgeons has changed its name several times, but it was originally founded in 1505, and it was originally known as the Incorporation of Surgeon Barbers. And that might give you an idea of how things have changed in 500 years. You can imagine what surgery would have been like as a patient 500 years ago. It would be horrendous, it would be very dangerous, it would be very painful. We knew very little about how the body worked at that point, never mind what we can do to fix it. And it always amuses people visitors to the museum, adults, children, to find out that in 1505 you could go along to the same person who would give you a shave or a haircut or chop off an arm. Okay? Because the job was done by the same person, the surgeon barbers. But from my point of view, I find it interesting to think that even 500 years ago, this was an organisation set up as a learning institution. It was a professional learning institution way before any idea of a museum came around, and our core purpose was really to train surgeons to a standard. And obviously 500 years ago, the standard would be very different. But nonetheless, some of the founding charter of the college, it included things like you should not be practicing as a surgeon unless you had a good knowledge of anatomy. You could not become a member of our organisation unless you could read and write. Okay? So you had to be literate. And curiously, we think, as far as we know, that's the earliest known recorded instance of an institution similar to ourselves with a requirement for literacy. 500 years ago, to train to become a surgeon, it was not an academic pursuit. You trained as an apprentice, in the same way that a carpenter working with wood or a stonemason chiselling stone would train as an apprentice. And that's how surgery was seen. It was seen as a manual trade, a manual craft. But clearly 500 years ago, there was a desire to be seen to be a serious professional organisation in that sense, given the time. So, you know, we have centuries and centuries of history behind us, way before we had any idea of museum arriving. So, as I say, there's more detail in the history in the paper, but just a couple of key moments in our history. For the first 100 and nearly 200 years, the surgeons met in various places around the city of Edinburgh to discuss surgical issues of the day. But in the late 1600s, in 1697, a permanent home was built, which is now known confusingly as Old Surgeons' Hall. And it was a permanent meeting place. It was a way for the college to have a public presence within the city that reflected its increasing status. And part of the reason for getting this built was directly related to the idea of teaching. Because back at this time, the college had asked the city council for bodies to be made available to dissect, to teach anatomy. And the city council says to the college, okay, we will give you more bodies for dissection, but only if you build a new building with a dissection theatre so that it can facilitate teaching. And so that was part of the deal. So the college agreed, yes, we will build an anatomical theatre as part of our new building. And this was the very, very early beginnings also of a museum and library collection. Just a couple of years after Old Surgeons' Hall opens, the college put out an advertisement in the local newspaper asking public to, if they have any botanical, medical, surgical books, or natural curiosities, as it was described, or artificial curiosities, could they donate them to the college? Because there was an intention to set up a museum. And certainly the library was set up at that point. When we look at our records, although we did get some objects given to us. No one really knows what happened to those objects, so it wasn't really the beginning of the museum as we know it today, but the intention was there. Okay? Sorry. So we stay in this building for, well, if you work out the maths, 140 odd years, until we move to the present building, and that's down the bottom here. This is our current home. So it's a very traditional looking museum, but it was built specifically to display what had become a much larger museum collection. So even nearly 200 years ago, the College of Surgeons saw the museum very much as a teaching aid, and it was set up as a teaching collection to train surgeons, to train doctors in knowledge of anatomy, and also, very importantly for us, knowledge of disease. So we have a large pathology collection. And we think that we're the oldest museum in the UK which is still in its original site, still with most of its original collection intact. So visitors walking in to our museum would be walking into the same building that they would go to 200 years ago. To a large extent, the atmosphere, the architecture has been preserved, and so it's quite a unique space in that regard. I've just included a couple of internal pictures of what the museum looked like before the refurbishment. As you can see, it's quite busy. There's a lot of display objects, as well as a lot of information and panels. But as I say, it was set up as a teaching collection, and it remained that way throughout the 19th century and most of the 20th century. Although, curiously, when you look at our archive records, and we have a continuous archive of college minutes which really record the day-to-day business of the college, and the earliest record we have is from 1581, and we now have a continuous record from 1581 to the present day, which is quite a treasure and quite a resource to have. But when you look at that, you find that even in 1832 when we opened, yes, it's a specialist museum, yes, it's primarily for medical training, but we did allow public in a very limited way. So I think originally general public were allowed to visit the museum maybe 2 afternoons a week. And there's comments in the record book about how well behaved the public were, and they treated the place with respect and so on. But it was really seen as a private institutional museum. And just one look at the picture here will tell you this was not a display set up for general public. I think this photo is from about 30 or 40 years ago. And no museum professional, even back then, would be setting up a display in that manner. So the display of the objects, the interpretation of the objects, it was really done by medics for medics. All the early curators of our museum were either surgeons or anatomists or pathologists. They were not museum professionals. It was very recently that changes. And the college continues to thrive with its core business of training surgeons. So it has over 23,000 members across the globe. Quite literally, it's a very international college with an international outlook, a very global reach. It's involved in surgical training programs and education programs all over the world. And as you can see in the map below, we even have exam centres, because it would be absurd to expect a surgeon training in Taiwan to fly to Edinburgh for a course or for a final exam. So we have exam centres set up, many in Asia, a few in Africa, Caribbean, Middle East is a big ongoing area of expansion for us also. Okay. In museum terms, things really begin to change very early in the 21st century. That was the first time a museum professional had been appointed to any senior position, and the job title changes from curator to director of heritage, because clearly and quite rightly the core of the college business is to train future surgeons. The heritage side of things is one small department within this wider college. But the wider college are very proud of the heritage, as you would expect from an institution that's 500 years old. And they know that we are the only public face to highlight the work of the college, to highlight the work of surgeons, to highlight issues around health and well-being. We are it as a museum. So in 2002, a Director of Heritage is appointed, and that Director of Heritage, I can say safely, had the foresight to think, well, if we want to be a modern museum, we must include education, and appointed me as education manager. And this was a new post. Again, it was completely new for our museum. And my remit was to develop a learning programme, initially based around bringing schools into the museum. And so that's what I set out to do, and worked away myself. The idea in larger museums, the National Museum of Scotland, which is round the corner from us in the city of Edinburgh, is like any national museum. It's a large organisation. I think their education department alone is 40 people. Our entire museum, library and archive staff is 15, and there's one of me for learning. But that was okay. I was able to, it gave me the freedom to experiment, the freedom to try new things. I had the support of the director, who had a very pragmatic view of things, and which was, well, try it, see if it works. If it doesn't work, what's the worst that can happen? And so that gave me a great freedom. But if you can see in the bottom picture, if I can explain what's going on there, this was an early workshop that I had planned and devised, based around the idea of forensics, very loosely. In the UK, the idea forensics is a very popular CSI. I don't know if you get the programme here. It's a TV programme. And it's very relevant to museums generally, I think, because if you think about it, it's the idea of close observation, investigating. But more than that, within our museum, we have a very direct link with a very famous forensic type character, Sherlock Holmes, the fictional detective. And I don't know, is it familiar? Yeah, excellent. And that makes this next bit a bit easier because Sherlock Holmes clearly is a fictional detective created by Arthur Conan Doyle, the author. What many visitors, even to our museum, don't realise or don't appreciate is Arthur Conan Doyle originally came to Edinburgh to train to become a doctor. He graduated from the university in Edinburgh as a medical doctor, and as a student he started writing part-time little stories, and the first Sherlock Holmes story appears and fairly quickly becomes very successful, and then it becomes this huge global phenomena. Within the museum, we have a small display on a man called Joseph Bell, who was a president of the College of Surgeons in the late 1800s. And Joseph Bell was one of Conan Doyle's tutors as a medical student. And just a quick little story to appeal to all the museum nerds and geeks like myself. We knew this story. Basically, Joseph Bell was the inspiration behind the character of Sherlock Holmes. We knew that. But as part of an exhibition we put on 10 years ago, one of our museum volunteers was doing some further research, and they discover a person that they think is a direct descendant of Joseph Bell. And they pick up the phone and they speak to this person, and they say, yeah, you're quite right. My husband was the great-great-grandson of Joseph Bell, but he died a short time ago, and he knew about the family history. I don't really know. But I do have some letters in my house, and you're welcome to come and have a look. So our volunteer goes along to meet this woman, this family, and she pulls a box from under the bed and opens this box and says, just have a look. There may not be anything of interest. And our volunteer, almost the first letter they pick up is a letter from Arthur Conan Doyle to Joseph Bell. And in it, he says, many thanks for your letter, etc. And then he says, it is most clearly to you that I owe the work. What's the phrase? It is most certainly to you that I owe Sherlock Holmes. And he talks about, in the stories, he creates dramatic positions and dramatic situations, but this is not an exaggeration of the work I have seen you do in your clinic. And what he was really saying was Joseph Bell had a very scientific mind, a very keen mind, and he would say to students, the most important skill as a doctor is observation, close observation. And if you have good observational skills, that's the foundation of being a good doctor. And so we use this quite a lot, and it's just a nice way to get new people into a museum who maybe are not mad about the story of anatomy, but there are a lot of Sherlock Holmes fans around the world. We get a lot of overseas visitors just on the back of Sherlock Holmes. So that's a kind of long way to explain why we were doing a forensic workshop. But we didn't have a dedicated education space. I would have to look around the college, see if there was a room free, and if there was, I'd quickly book it, and then we'd put on, this is just some work with microscopes, examining hair fibres. We've done a bit of experiments where you can extract DNA from strawberries and things like other fruits and so on. We would do fingerprinting, we would do ink chromatography, where you put an ink spot in chemicals and you draw it out. And so very simple, pardon me, scientific experiments around the story of forensics. But that was about as far as we could go with education because of our limited facilities. We were at a point where we wanted to expand, and the only way we really could expand was to be quite ambitious. And a new director came in 2010, who's still with us, and part of their remit when they were appointed was to look at how to redevelop the museum. So after several years of funding applications and thinking how we want to do this, we ultimately are successful, and we get the funding in place to really look at a refurbishment of the museum. Okay? When we were doing this, we knew we wanted to transform things from a visitor point of view. We were aware that there was a very keen interest in the human body. It's a very universal subject. We all have a body. We're all fascinated by our own bodies and how it works, even if maybe for some people they don't want to come and look at specimens and jars, but there is that universality. to the subject. So we knew that there was a level of interest there. And behind it, I guess, two things stood out for me. And it was about, various speakers this morning mentioned the idea of increasing access to collections in different ways. And that was at the heart of this refurbishment. We had to increase access to allow visitors to get in more easily, because physical access into our museum was very difficult. It was on the second floor of a building. There was no lift, no elevator. If you were in a wheelchair, I'm sorry, you really weren't able to come in. Or if you had difficulty walking, you probably were going to find it difficult. So that was one obvious area where we want to increase access. But for myself, absolutely just as important as that was this idea of increasing intellectual access and moving away from the display that I showed you that was written by doctors for doctors. We knew for several years that the vast majority of our visitors didn't have a medical background, but they were fascinated about the story of medicine, the story of the body, the history, and all the interesting characters around that. So we wanted to increase intellectual access. So the project itself had four main parts to it. The new accessible entrance to allow people to get in the first place. A complete museum redisplay to allow visitors to make sense of what they were seeing and go away, hopefully, with a deeper understanding of things. We wanted to improve the archive facilities, and we also have a duty to look after a very historic building. It's protected under the heritage status, and parts of the stonework had deteriorated after 200 years of cold Scottish weather, wind and rain battering the stones, so we wanted to preserve that. So it was an all-encompassing heritage project, not just a museum project. It was a building, it was a museum, it was the library and archive. And just, if I can say, if you remember what this looks like, okay, this was what the old museum looked like. So later, bear that in mind to see the difference. I always joke with visitors nowadays when they come in, and I quite often ask them, is this your first time in the museum? And sometimes they'll say, oh no, I was here 5 years ago. And I'll say, well, I'll be interested to see your reaction to the differences, the changes we've made. Because without joking, I think we had about 20 shades of brown in our museum. As well, a very dirty old brown carpet. And so it was time for a bit of modernisation. Just to give you an idea of time frame, it was relatively a short space of time to do a complete museum. This was not one gallery to redevelop, this was a whole museum, and really it's in four spaces, four gallery spaces. So in November 2013, the funding is confirmed. We have some months before we actually close to the public to allow us to empty all the objects out of the cases safely, put them into temporary storage, and we have to do that really in a 6-week period to allow the builders to become on site so that we don't delay things. And that was quite a big job to do for a small team, because a lot of this was done in-house. It was myself, my director, and all the other team members getting their hands dirty. It wasn't about, oh, that's not my job remit. It was just, this needs done, we'll all work together and we'll get it done. And then finally, a year and a half after closing, we reopened to visitors. So we're just over 2 years reopened. So just to give you an idea of what's involved in a refurbishment, I realise this is not necessarily education, but I think for certainly the students here, to get a flavour of a redisplay. There were 7 core staff with a few volunteers to pack objects, and this is myself and my director carefully wrapping a painting and giving you an idea of the temporary storage. Because of course, you take these things off show, you need to know where they are. You need to be able to find them again in 1.5 years to put them back on display. So that was quite a logistical operation in itself. But we managed to get everything safely out in time for the builders to start. As I say, a lot of it was done in-house with our own team of staff. Some, where we needed to, we relied on outside external specialists. So this is quite a precarious looking thing over here. This is a bit of shelving furniture that had to be safely brought down from here to here and dropped down over a banister. We had no lift, if you remember. So this was a team of specialist furniture removers that helped us do this. This again is my director in his jeans getting mucky, removing an elephant skull from a wall which would be, 30 feet high over some stairs. This guy is employed by the college as an electrician and general handyman, joiner, and so he built this wooden ramp for us so that once the elephant skull is removed or unattached from the wall, it can be safely and slowly lowered down this ramp on ropes. So there was an element of do-it-yourself and trying to figure out solutions to problems as they arise. But that was part of the fun. I think for the team, because it's a small team, what it allowed, it was a great way for the team to feel involved in a project, so that when we reopen, they don't think, oh yeah, we just spent lots of money, we got external people in to do all the work. No, we've done it ourselves for the most part, and people feel proud of that, they feel ownership, and when the new museum opens, they think, I played a part in that. It doesn't matter if it was my director or me or another more junior member of staff, everyone played a part in getting the thing done. So this is just a couple of images of this nice brown gallery, what it looked like when it's emptied. And of course, for many months, you look at a building site and you think, how on earth is this ever going to change and become this gleaming new museum that we hope for? And for a long time, nothing seems to happen. And then in the last 2 months, it's frantic work. This is a pathology gallery, and as far as the eye can see here, this is just shelf upon shelf of glass jars, the specimens. So that all had to be emptied safely. The museum site is quite a problematic site, because on the, on the left is the original building that I showed you earlier with the traditional columns. And on the right hand side is the extended part of the museum where all the brown was. And previously it was connected here by a little stone bridge. So that all had to be demolished. We have to sink foundations down here to create a lift shaft, an elevator shaft, and then build new stairwell, new entrance, new glass front, and so on. So a large part of it was a construction project. And then inside, a lot of the infrastructure, the electrics, hadn't been touched for 100 years, probably weren't safe, so that all had to be sorted out before you can even think about redisplay. So it was quite a patient waiting game in many regards. But then the exciting part happens, and this was probably I think, early July in the following year. So about 2 months before we're due to reopen, everything starts appearing, and it's like a giant jigsaw set. All this woodwork that has to be joined together and put in place. And one of our key ideas, our centrepiece, if you like, was the idea of reconstructing an anatomy theatre setup in the centre of this room. So this was the skeleton of it. And while this is all going on, we have these guys upstairs. This is the same room as this. Upstairs, these are specialist museum case manufacturers from Italy who come in and are working away at the same time as joiners and electricians and painters and decorators. And it all gets a bit chaotic, but it was a lot of fun. Just to show you a before and after from the archive, which I mentioned. I think any librarian now seeing this would be horrified in terms of fire risk and everything else, pest control and so on. But this is our new archive with the roller racking and so on. So as I say, it was an all-encompassing project. There's some of the stonework restoration being done on the outside, and this was a new entrance created in this gap where previously, a few months before it was an empty hole. So that was just before it opened. This was just to keep, it was a building site to keep visitors safely away from it. Okay? But we do reopen on budget and on time. And now I want to just focus a bit on some specifics of what it has allowed us to do. Because a key part of the refurbishment was to create a bespoke learning space, which we call the Anatomy Lab. It's the name we've given it. And it allows us to do things that just would not have been possible. Some ideas that had been in my head for several years, saying, I wish we had the facility to do this. Sometimes it was other people coming up with new ideas that I hadn't considered, but all made possible by the refurbishment. So this is me. I don't know if anyone knows what this is, just out of interest. This is an old drill that would be used by dentists to drill your teeth. And it operates with a foot pedal. So you do this, and it spins round, and it rotates a drill. Okay? It was invented in 1871, so this was pre-electricity. And this was the only way to power this foot drill. And both kids and adults love it. This is an original piece. This is not a reconstruction or a replica that we've made. This is an original foot drill from the late 19th century that still works, and kids can have a go at firing this up, and they love it. And then they think, oh my goodness, imagine having that in your mouth and getting your teeth drilled with this foot drill. And what I tell them is, if you think that's bad, just before the foot drill, what dentists had to use was a clockwork drill, where you wind it up, you have a key, and it goes for 2 or 3 minutes, and then slowly it goes, slows down in your mouth. So a foot drill, by comparison, is fantastic. This is state-of-the-art technology in 1871. Okay, anyway. So I guess when it comes to learning, it can be as broad a definition as you like, and I do tend to go for broad definitions when it comes to learning. So I guess just to make a bit of sense of what I'm going to show you, if we start thinking about the more formal school visits, which is obviously a key part of the programme, while planning it, you certainly want to speak to teachers, you want to know the curriculum. One word of warning with that, I guess, it is very dependent on your own circumstance and your own context. We have a museum that is very narrow and very specialist. It's a museum of surgery. You know, a medical museum is quite a narrow field. Surgery museum is even narrower. History of surgery doesn't appear in any curriculum that I've ever seen in any country. So we have to be quite creative in how we entice schools to come and visit. But thankfully there is more and more of a move in the UK and in other countries where politicians, policymakers value the idea of learning outside the classroom. There's an intrinsic value to come to a site like a museum or a nature park or a zoo or a gallery to enhance and extend learning. So you can over worry, I think, about the curriculum sometimes. I think teachers do see the value in and of itself. And because I had been doing this on my own, planning and delivering this to schools and other groups, I didn't really need to go down the formal route of, organising meetings. I had 7 or 8 years of constantly talking to teachers, and so hopefully in my head, certainly, I thought I had a good idea of what teachers and what wanted, what they needed, what would interest children, what would engage the children when it came to it. And although it's a narrow subject focus in terms of surgery, we actually get a relatively broad range of classes. Primarily, it's history classes, coming at it from a history angle, or science classes. But we do also get English classes, partly because of the Sherlock Holmes connection, partly because there's a lot of social history involved. And there's a novel that's popular in the UK, and it's written for teenagers, and it's based around the story of old Edinburgh and medical teaching and some notorious characters who get involved in stealing bodies to sell them to anatomy schools. It's all very exciting. But a lot of classes read this to their 12-year-olds, and so we get visits off the back of that. And we get a lot of art visits, both schools and art colleges, where people just want to come and sketch, or even general visitors who want to come and sketch. So, it's relatively broad, and there's a lot of cross-curricular engagement in that way. And what's lovely for me is to see the repeat visits coming. So, shortly after I started, there was a local high school who inquired, they got in touch and they said, "Oh, I'm not sure if this is possible, but can we bring our class, our history class it happened to be?" And this was second year in high school, so maybe 12 years old. And I said, "Yeah, we'd love to have you, please come." And they brought their whole year group over 3 days. So I think the first year it was about 120 children over 3 days to the old museum with no education space, nowhere to put a coat or a bag or anything, and me on my own. So after 3 days I was, but it was a great start. That same school have come every single year since, for the last 10 years, except when we were closed. And I thought, oh, we've closed for a year and a half, maybe they'll forget about us, maybe they won't come back. And of course, one of the first groups to book the visit when we reopened was that same high school, who are still coming. And what also happens is teachers move. So the person who was the head of history in this school gets a new job as head of history in a different school. So he brings that school now as well. And so what I guess I'm saying, for smaller organisations, if you're working in a smaller museum, it's not just about numbers and everyone wants to have large numbers of people coming through, but it's about the quality of that visit. And people don't come back for 10 years on the trot unless they see it as of value, I guess is what I'm saying. But things do build slowly. Okay, we started from really almost zero to where we are now. And it's still very small in museum terms, but for us, it's fantastic. We have, not just school, we have I have to tell you this because I just think it's insanely brilliant. I think maybe about 8 years ago, we had a school from Germany, and they came over to Edinburgh on an exchange for a visit, and they were in Edinburgh for a week, and one of the stop-offs was our place. And they only do this every 2 years, and they started coming, every time they were in Edinburgh, they would come into the Surgeons Hall Museum. And then they missed a year, and I didn't hear from the teacher. And then a couple of years later, the teacher gets in touch with me by email and says, can I bring my school group? And I said, oh yeah, I didn't see you last year. Oh no, I've moved to Norway now. I work in a school in Norway, in Oslo. Can I bring those kids? Wow, yes, of course you can. So you can imagine, for my bosses and for even the college, the wider college, to see, you know, the engagement where people are travelling across the continent to come and visit. I'm not pretending they only came to see us, you know, they were in Edinburgh anyway. But it's fabulous. We have American colleges that come every 2 years and so on. Anyway, this is a workshop that was designed for high school students, and what they're doing in the top here is actually an adapted version of a real workshop that trainee surgeons do. This is them practicing stitching, surgical suturing with artificial skin pads. And I think what I like about that activity is this is not a pretend activity. This is not something that you've created where the kids think, oh well, it's just a bit of fun, and you know. This is authentic in the sense that this is the same activity trainee surgeons do. And there's something very nice for a kid to, you know, a 16-year-old to think, wow, I'm really doing this. And they get scrubbed up and they talk about the importance of hand washing, which again is part of a basic surgical skills course that the college runs for real surgeons. I think I need to speed up, but I just want to show you some images. This is further down for elementary schools where they explore the body in the classroom. So this is a messy workshop all about the journey of food through the body and the digestive system. So they mash up various food items, they put them through types, and we talk about how the stomach, the intestine, the body absorbs liquid through the intestine and replicates it. And you can see the fun in their faces there. I love this guy's face where he's like, ooh, part disgust and part thrill of the fun of it. But again, all of this would not have been possible in the old museum. And a lot of these images are in this learning space, the anatomy lab, but in every single case, a school visit involves some activity in the room with our learning officer, followed by a gallery visit, and there's things out in the gallery to engage younger visitors as well. This is certainly the most popular thing for adults and youngsters, and it's a trainer for keyhole surgery, where you put a camera in and you manipulate the instruments, and it's all done on a screen, you know, for operating on a knee or something. In this case, all they're trying to do is stack cubes, because it's practicing hand-eye coordination. But we do quite a number of university and college visits where we try and focus on the area of study, and a lot of that is maybe access to nursing courses, health studies, social anthropologists, literature students and so on. And this, I've gone the wrong way. This is very counterintuitive for me, sorry. This was a piece of academic research done by a master's student who was studying forensic art. She was very interested in the disease of syphilis. This is a 200-year-old skull from our collection. She borrowed a scan. Her university allowed her to bring the scanner to the museum, scanned accurately this skull, and she then does a facial reconstruction in a plasticast 3D model, which she then gives to us after her thesis is finished. Said, would you like it? I have no use for it. And I said, I'd love it. And it's now proudly on display alongside the skull that it was based on. So, you know, we can get some display material out of research on the odd occasion, not on every occasion. So we have schools, we have colleges, we have lifelong learning. We've been part of a city council run programme for many years, where over 5 weeks the same participants come for 5 consecutive Mondays, let's say, and find out all about Surgeons Hall and the history and the stories of it, local community groups with guided tours and so on. But one new part of my job since reopening is I oversee the learning programme, but I also oversee the events programme, which any event you put on for any visitor will involve some kind of learning. And we try and make it as diverse as possible, so that it appeals to as broad a range of audiences as possible. And we balance it with, you know, the academics, traditional talks in the evening, to general interest things, family workshops, kids workshops, activities that kids and their parents can do together for a bit of fun. And this just gives you an idea. These are 2 fairly standard academic type talks that we put on. This was again a forensics workshop run by our learning officer, but aimed at families during school holiday time, so that they come in with the family. And it's a similar thing with fingerprinting and so on. This was a one that was a little bit left field. We called it The Anatomy of Singing. And this woman here is a classically trained singer, and she worked alongside her human remains conservator, who was talking about how the voice works and, you know, the mechanics of it. But it was basically a singing workshop as part of it. We have a lot of art workshops. This artist is involved in one of her areas of interest is making books, book binding, and so on. So these were some of the participants. And again, sometimes workshops targeted at children, sometimes targeted at adults. I think sometimes people think, all the fun stuff is just for the kids, and adults aren't interested. As you can see, adults enjoy a bit of fun as well. Dissection was the one that I had wanted to do for a long time, and people said, "Are you crazy? You can't cut open real hearts and things with children. They'll cut themselves and you'll get into trouble and stuff." I said, "It'll be okay." So we offered a heart dissection workshop. These are not human hearts, these are lamb hearts we used, for children, but with their parents to come along. And this is a father and son getting very involved and looking at the detail of the heart, led by a volunteer who was a retired pathologist alongside our learning officer. And it was so popular, a lot of the parents were saying, "Can we not do it? Can you not offer that for adults?" So we offered it for adults. And it's the most popular thing we've done. We've, I think, put on we've offered it about 4 times for adults and kids, and every single time it's sold out. And this is just a lovely photo of this slightly more mature couple, shall we say. And look at his face and how fascinated he is by this heart that he's dissecting. So there's that. We're okay for time? Yeah. And then we wanted to try and create new avenues. So this was a piece of theatre within the gallery itself. So this is the new anatomy theatre. Makes a nice little spot. It seats about 30 adults reasonably comfortably. But there's a balcony above, so you can get a lot more people to see. And this was a specially written piece of theatre based around the story of James Young Simpson, who was an Edinburgh doctor with connections with the college, but he was the first person anywhere in the world to use chloroform as an anaesthetic. So this was called This Won't Hurt a Bit, this piece of theatre, and it was only 4 actors, and they'd move around the gallery space and the audience would follow them. And it was a lovely night, and we got some great feedback from the audience. This is them trying out chloroform for the first time and getting knocked out and things like that. So we've got, performance theatre in there. What have we got here? Oh, this is really, remember the surgical skills workshop? This was not for schools, but for family groups. For a few years we've been part of the Edinburgh International Science Festival, so this runs during the Easter holidays and is very, very popular. So we try and work in partnership where appropriate and where it works. And this is all the kids gowned up and doing the surgical suturing. And I think, this is learning about the importance of washing hands. This is cleaning out a wound, just a bit of chicken that we buy from the supermarket. You put biscuit crumbs on it and you syringe it out. And then finally, once the wound is clean, then you can stitch it up and you're practicing your stitching skills. So that's that one. This was one I wasn't sure of. And this was led by our human remains conservator, who's the person, if you have a jar and the fluid goes too low or evaporates, then it needs replaced. So this is her job, it's a very specialist job. And we thought, some visitors always ask, how do you preserve something that's 200 years old? Why does it not rot? Oh, let's try and show them. So we've done a workshop for adults, not for kids, where you preserve your own heart. And again, it was lamb heart. And you have to be a little bit careful because obviously there are chemicals involved. So Kat, our human remains conservator, had to pre-prepare to an extent. But then people were able to pot their own heart, seal it up, label it, and decorate it and things, and they could take their heart away with them at the end of the evening. And then this is the last one, where it's an event that's running at the moment while I'm here, based on medieval medicine. And this is Jordana, our events officer, who's also an actress, but she goes out and works with local youth theatre and trains them up basically to be guides. And it's a walking tour around the city that ends up in Surgeons Hall. So that's quite an ambitious one and seems to be working well. I think I'm just about out of time, but if I quickly show you just what it's meant and how it's changed the museum. So just in terms of pure numbers, in 2009, this is education visits. We had less than 1,000 education visitors. So that's pupils, students, community groups and so on. If you really ignore these two, this is when the museum was closed for most of it, that's why there was a dip. So we had a steady increase, and then we reopened, and we had nearly 3,500 last year, and we'll get at least that again this year. So again, that's not a massive number, but for a small specialist museum, it's fantastic. And I kid you, I'm not kidding when I say, if I moved that back to 2007, when I started, I think over a whole year, we had 2 schools, like maybe 40 kids, and that was it. So we're starting from nothing and going to that. For general museum visits, again, the story's similar. 2009, we had just over 10,000 visitors. The year before we closed, we had 35,000 visitors, and that was the most visitors we ever had. And then we closed over this period, and then last year we had 64,000 visitors. And this year, I would be surprised if we don't get 75,000 visitors. Okay, so it's been a huge success story for us. I'll maybe leave this for now and move forward. we've won various awards for the refurbishment, so forgive what might appear boastfulness, but we were so delighted as a small museum to be recognised on a national stage and also internationally, and the profile has raised considerably. The Museum and Heritage Awards are one of the most prestigious awards across UK museums, and we were up in 2 categories, permanent exhibition and innovation, and we won the permanent exhibition across the whole of the UK last year, and we were highly commended, which was runner-up, second in innovation. Now, if I tell you, the people who were also nominated for the permanent exhibition were people like the British Museum, with 4 million visitors, the V&A Design Museum in London. These are big national institutions, and we're these little place in Edinburgh that no one had ever heard of, and we turn up to a very nice award ceremony in central London, and you can see people going, what? Surgeons Hall, who are they? And then we walk away with the prize, so really delighted. And innovation was about the anatomy theatre, which I've not had a chance to show you. I might show you later on. We came second, but we came second to the Natural History Museum in London, who had spent millions doing a virtual reality thing with David Attenborough, probably the most popular broadcaster in the country for natural history and wildlife programs. I'm a huge fan of his, so I have no problem coming second to David Attenborough and various other awards we've won. Okay, so I think I'll leave it there and just thank you again. There is a video from our website. Have I got time to show it, or do you want me to leave it and I can show it at the end? Yeah, you want to see it? Okay. There we go. So it just gives you a flavour of some of the areas of the museum. And this is on their own website, so if you just Google Surgeons Hall Museum, you can see this at your leisure at home. But this is the top floor of the pathology gallery with the specimens, and it's organised by surgical specialty. You'll get a view in a second. If I just move it along here a little bit and work down. The mouse doesn't seem to be, oh, there we go. So if I move to there, this gives you another view. I just want to go downstairs so you can see. Right, let's try. So this is it from outside. You can see this building here. There's a great story. This was like many museums, it looks quite off-putting for visitors. You know, it's quite grand. And when we look at the architect's original notes, this stone wall was to keep out the curious, the public curious. And our whole point of this was we want the curious in, so it was nice to see that. But if I just take you in, this is how visitors would approach the museum. They go up the stairs or up the elevator. This is our new ticket centre. If I just go in there, I want to show you the anatomy theatre. This gives you an idea of this new space with the cases that we have. And this is the centrepiece, where it's a virtual dissection. And if I can pause that for a moment, maybe, or I'll just let it run. But this body is projected from underneath, and there's a film show that runs at the same time. And it's all based around a real event that happened in Surgeons Hall in 1702. And it was the first recorded public dissection done in Scotland. And we know from our archives the 7 surgeons who were involved, the names of them. We have oil paintings of 6 of the 7. We know on day 1, they start in the abdomen, day 2, they look at kidneys and so on. And so as this is unfolding as a film for visitors, the body is animated and it reveals the different parts of the body. So it's a really nice centerpiece. We've got an interactive here where people smell, because often you don't use all your senses in a gallery, and we wanted to try and engage as many senses as possible, so they smell traditional herbs used in healing, and they lift it up and they discover, oh, it's mint, and it was used for upset stomachs or whatever it may be. So, as I say, you can explore this at your leisure at home just by Googling Surgeons Hall Museum. But it just gives you a flavour of the museum. But I think I'll leave it there. Okay. So, thank you very much.
好，我们谢谢 ，Thank you, Thomas. Thank you. We keep all the question until the last session. Okay. 我听完他的演讲，我大概有几些想法，但是因为时间关系，晚了10分钟了，所以我想就先介绍下一个演讲。那待会我有的想法，最后那个部分我们再来一起我掏出来，大家去讨论，好不好？好，我们第二个演讲是成功大学历史系陈恒安教授陈恒老师我们是有共同的学术的血统。我们都是东海大学的所以这个叫做academic pedigrees， 这是我们都东海大学，所以因为时间关系我不多说明，那就请陈老师跟我们谈一谈这个医学博物馆跟医学教育这方面事情。我看了一下他的那个文章，就稍微把台湾目前几个类似跟医学相关的博物馆都做些整理。有我们科博馆放进去，好像有吧我不知道有没有。OK， 好 ，OK， 我们来再次欢迎陈恒康陈老师，好不好？
那个应该叫学长还有各位朋友。我因为时间不多，不过还是先讲一下整个背景刚听演讲的时候，我一直想到一件事情是多年前有个瑞士的博物馆馆员到台湾来，一样是研讨会，然后谈到他们的状况，跟刚刚的演讲有点类似，就是在以科学或医学来说，在欧洲或是欧美国家，它有非常多的原来的比如理论的发生地或是第一个手术的发生地，所以他们的问题在于东西非常多。那这个场景换到台湾的时候，那个时候我印象非常深刻。我们报告的时候，我们想的事情完全不一样。他们像刚刚在整理那些东西，花非常多时间。我们在想的是说，我们没有物件，我们没有人，我们没有钱，我们没有空间，可是我们要有个博物馆，我们怎么做？我们完全是从另外一个角度来谈的。所以我今天的角度会从类似这样的角度来谈。那刚刚主持人也说我做一些整理其实我做了非常简单的整理，所以有些馆舍其实我也不太了解，所以如果没有提到，请多多见谅。我大概是从我自己科学史、医学史的角度的学术的背景，还有我在成大博物馆工作了，我们刚好创馆了10年，我在那边工作了10年左右的一些个人的经验跟想法跟大家分享，所以我是从这个角度来的，所以会有点片面，可是提供大家参考那这个就是我们一般在博物馆当中看到的收藏品，这个是在维也纳Museum， 在维也纳的一个以前是关精神病患的人，现在变成是博物馆，里面有非常多的标本，非常多的蜡制的模型等等这就是以前的医学博物馆。那进行的教学大概就是刚刚类似传统的专业医学教育的教学，或者是这个是在柏林Charité 的博物馆，它就是一个病理学博物馆 ，Visual 的那个病理学的博物馆，它也是非常多的标本，非常多的这些病理标本。那过去它的讲堂就在标本室旁边，所以讲堂讲课完之后，他们就进入标本室，进行的也是所谓的专业的教育。那当然 Visual 的博物馆在当时就有点想说可以开放给大家，但基本上还是比较是在所谓的专业知识跟技能教育，或是知识普及的这样子的概念来看他们的使用都是这样子的。那这个是维也纳另外一个 Josephino 里面，它就是有最近台湾出一本书，有没有？ 就是类似这样子。它这些都是意大利制的模型，非常的像。那这个头发有的都是真人的头发，只是那整个是模型的。那过去这个都是作为教育，因为各位应该多多少少也看过电脑的那些3D 模拟的。其实真正的模型有个好处是，它的那个立体感跟那个重量感是跟电脑不一样的啊。那所以现在有些专业的科学教育或医学教育又回到这个传统的模型上面去使用啊。不过不管怎么样，这就是过去医学教育的跟博物馆的关系。我时间不多，我很快的讲哦。那我正在想的事情是，如果这个只是所谓的医学教育、医学专业教育，那我自己的估计是，台湾现在各类的医学博物馆、医疗类博物馆，大概不会有太多的机会会去投资进行这样子的专业医学教育，因为有非常多的临床、非常多的实验模拟新的那种模拟的实验的那种器具或者那种的设备，要不要花钱去整理一个博物馆来进行最新的医学教育？我觉得机会不大。但我们也没有那么多的类似过去的第一个标本啊，第一个什么病理实验的什么设备，或是像那个牙医刚刚那个牙医的东西，我们那种东西并不多。所以，如果那个东西不多，那我们该干什么呢？我就在想这件事情啊。那医学教育就是刚传统的教育，爱听秋坟鬼唱诗的意思就是说，其实很多人去那种博物馆，就是去那边好像去鬼屋一样，哎呦好恐怖哦，然后就出来了。那它是一个可以引起兴趣，我觉得是非常 OK 的。可是如果只是为了那个引起兴趣花那么多成本，我觉得一点都不值得啊。那如果不能进行传统医，不是不能，而是说我们发挥的机会不大，然后又不希望只是来这边下一下就走，那我们可以有怎么样的想象？我就从这边开始去想这件事情。那这简单的做一下，只是我很快的整理了一下，我发现其实台湾这种医疗类博物馆非常多，多到我吓一跳。我都决定国科会的计划应该提个计划去研究一下这个发展啊。那简单来说，你可以有人物为主啊，或者说以疾病为主的，以机构为导向的，就各类的院士最多了。然后地区的，或者是主题的，或者以教育为主的啊，有自然科学博物馆啊，学长有，就各式各样的馆哦。那跟我们想过，一个博物馆经营者，我们希望大家来，而且是各种那个观众群，他们是想看到什么？或者你也可以问说，我们想让他们看到什么？就台湾第一什么什么什么，还是我们看到一些伟大的奉献，还是说某些政策的成功，还是就是一个 local 的历史，还是传统刚刚讲的医学教育，还是医学教育的普及啊？这些都重要，这些都重要。可是只能做到这样子吗？我觉得医学博物馆有两层社会责任。第一个，博物馆它长期以来受到大家的信任，在一个历史类调查里面，大家最信任美国的研究，大家最信任的一个机构就是博物馆。对历史类的东西来说，所以历史博物馆本身就是一个殿堂。那另外一个是广义的科学或医学，这个知识体系它又是一个殿堂，所以医疗类或科学类博物馆它是两种殿堂，所以它有两层社会的信任。如果被那么信任、那么倚重，我们只做这件事情，我还是觉得不值得啊。那不值得的时候，就想想看能做什么。那我先用这句话来开启一个想象，就是以医学来说，科学医学来，雅斯培是一个哲学，他是一个医生，后来变哲学家嘛，啊，他讲的这句话说，科学止步之处，医生能做什么？就是就像类似今年的安宁医疗一样，你做到一个程度了，那之外是什么？搞不好之外才是人的开始啊。那这是一个维也纳大学的一个学者。科学研究的学者，他带着我们去看那个风轮塔的时候，他以前关精神病患，现在变博物馆。他认为说，里面刚刚那么多的标本，类似各位刚刚看到非常多，甚至爱丁堡的非常多的标本。其实我们去看，不是只是看，好可怕，或是医院的那些人的医学专业人去看那个病理标本的那种知识。我们应该看什么呢？ 我们可以从另外角度来发展这个。其实它是在看正常跟不正常这件事情。当你这个医学体系跟这个法律制度变成一套体系，把某些人关在那里面的时候，那个社会的情境是什么？他怎么处理正常跟病理？那什么是疯子？什么是理性的人？有个诗人曾经说，他常乱讲话，就会被抓去去法庭嘛。然后人家说他是疯子，然后出来之后，人家问他说：“到底怎么回事哦？”他就说：“他们说我是疯子，我说他们是疯子，可是他们人比我多。”就是这样。当你一个科学作为标准，法律作为标准，我们的社会情境是什么样？作为医学人文，我们可不可以谈这样的情境啊？那另外一个，这个刚刚也提到，上一位演讲者也提到，其实很多讲到最后都是生命跟死亡的问题哦。我们透过死亡来认识生命，就像刚刚提到的解剖，我们透过病理知道什么叫生理，我们也是知道胃痛才知道胃在哪里嘛，对不对？所以这是我们能够发展的观点来看医疗文化、医疗体系啊，然后跟医学院发展出来那种医学教育做一个互补，或是一个搭配。那我认为这应该是医学博物馆里面人文教育的视野可以提供的不同的东西。这张图就是在讲那个 no perspective, no history， 这个是达利的画。艺术家其实很讨厌，他画半天，最后没告诉你他到底有没有画。他的头遮住有没有？他的头遮住这个画布。达利有可能画他太太的脑后勺啊、后脑勺啊，他不一定，他到底画什么？他没告诉你。那这个就是一个物件在那边，但是你要怎么说这个物件？我觉得这是博物馆，或者特别是跟大学有关的博物馆最强的地方，因为它有很强的研究能量，有很强的研究能量，它不是陈列式。他必须要去说故事，物不会说故事，是你让物说故事啊。那博物馆有个好处或有坏处是，它有空间论述的能力跟物件论述的能力，你容易有某种的 feel， 大家喜欢去博物馆有这种 feel。可是它有个麻烦是，它不像论文有同侪审查，再加上论文注脚，你可以去追每个知识的来源。博物馆一个东西放在那边，搞不好它只有这么一件，你会以为它是很多件。就是挑选那个东西过程你是不知道的，观众是没办法参与的，所以那个部分反而是一个很重要的知识权利的呈现跟很隐微的地方。那医学人文的教育或是展示手法有没有可能去凸显这样子的特色啊？那我觉得，因为从我的角度，我觉得有一些比较理论的东西可以提供大家参考，我这边会很快的过去哦，因为时间不会很多。那我一直提到这些东西，当然是跟我的背景有关了。那这是德国的一个学科叫医学史、医理学，就是医学理论啊，跟医学伦理。他们这个是医师国考必考的一个科目啊。那为什么需要这些 perspective 来增加医学人文的讨论的向度呢？有一句话就是这样讲的哦，因为医学很重要嘛。所以我们不能只交给医学专家，我们每个人在这个公民社会里面，我们应该对这个议题都有一些参与的机会。那所以这个展示就变成说，应该要有同时跟人文科学的人互动，而且它应该成为人文学科的重要的研究议题。那伦理学，我们在很多的展示里面，刚刚很多的医疗，譬如刚刚谈到的那个不管是麻醉啊，或是什么，或是在法医啊，甚至跟战争有关的，其实很多的展示，我们陈列出来，透过空间陈列出来之后，我们都在说一些故事。那不管你有没有很明确的表达出来，其实都是一种伦理性的判断、伦理性的叙事啊。那譬如，假设我举个比较极端的，譬如很多战争跟医疗的东西，我们展示完之后，我们当然是经常会看到那样的结论哦，就是会带着你走一圈，觉得说，以后这种事情不要发生。可是各位即使说，以后不要发生，我们都还可以从人文的角度，更是细谈说怎么样呈现，因为这两个以后都不要发生差很多。一个是以后这种事都不该有了，一个是以后这种事不要在我们身上发生就好。 这个就是把那跟他西北了没关系，不要在我们身上就好。这个是有程度上的差异。那这种差异要怎么样是透过展示去说出来？我觉得这是需要研究，需要人文学科的加入去讨论哦。那另外一个是医学史，各位可以看到医学史有很特殊的，譬如说医学史其实也可以是很当代导向的哦。那你可以看到这边有写的，譬如说它有实用的价值啊，譬如说公卫流行病防治历史，经常作为当代现在的一些案例的参考啊。那更不用讲中医，你现在要读《内经》。那另外一个医学史，它也当然是扮演了一个西方文明的一个很重要的一个特色，人类文明的一个很重要的特色。所以它是一个文化认同。那科学概念它某些的带来的现代性，所以它也是有学科的认同。这些过去都会做，但是二战后60年代之后的人文社会学研究比较会从另外一个角度慢慢去探讨科学或医学这件事情，那就会加入比较社会史、心态史、病人的历史、性别的角度等等啊。那甚至到了现在更重视这样子的知识生产的过程。我们过去的展示都是展示成果，譬如有个模型是什么样子的理论发展出来的，介绍那个理论。但是现在在谈科学，更会把时间花在说这样子的成果是透过什么样的过程所形塑出来的，在什么样的概念跟什么样的物质条件，在什么样的操作，为了解决什么问题而产生的，那个过程反而比较重视哦。那如果是这样的话，就变成过去可能就是一个医生，就刚刚讲了说，过去的那个负责人，爱丁堡那个医疗博物馆的负责人都是医生，现在因为必须从这个角度，所以慢慢的就不见得是医疗人员来作为主管啊，这是必须要跨领域的一个努力哦。那其实最简单的就是刚刚提到的医学史或者说医学伦理，我们经常可以提供很多案例哦。那以人文学的研究来讲白话这边参考就好。讲白话就是说，当一个事情很简单的时候，你就要把它讲复杂。这什么意思呢？因为事情本来就没有简单的，所以你要把它讲简单。可是当大家都很乱的时候，很复杂的时候，你要帮他把它抽象出来一个某种的原则，或者某种的道德判断啊、伦理判断，或是某种的概念。所以你必须要把它在这种近距离跟远距离的地方来回来谈这件事情啊。所以你在呈现这些物件的时候，你不见得是呈现什么，你不见得是在用来支持或反对特定的伦理行为。我们比较是在把博物馆或这个展示空间当成一种公共领域。我们的第一个首要的目的应该是社会沟通、知识沟通。那第二个，我们的目标是用正确的知识来进行那样子的沟通。那过去可能是反过来把正确的知识的呈现作为第一最高的目的。我觉得现在可能是对我来讲可能是反过来哦。第一个目的是要进行社会沟通，利用刚刚的两重信任的公共领域来进行这样子的沟通。那这些想法会让你的策展的想法会有点不太一样啊。那其实另外一个要讲的是，其实所有的博物馆，任何类型的博物馆，都有学者把它称为是历史类的博物馆，因为像刚刚讲10几世纪的东西啊，都是遗留下来的嘛，它都有一些历史的足迹遗迹在啊。那博物馆是最容易把一个时间给空间化的地方。就那个旧的东西在你面前之后，你就有一种临场感，那个东西就变成是一种见证嘛，哦，变成一种见证，所以这是一个很难得的机会。可是博物馆也不希望只是怀旧哦。刚刚有一个希望是不希望只是被吓一跳，第二个是博物馆不是只希望去怀旧。我们之所以会往后去思考，其实我们是希望能够我们有未来的导向跟未来的期待，有某种的广义的政治的态度在里面。政治态度就是我们有一种想望，希望更好，所以我们会配置资源啊，所以有某种未来的导向的啊，所以这些都是我们必须是在讨论呈现这个知识的脉络的时候，必须从人文社会的角度去 谈的。那这个一样，那刚谈的好像都是很外部的，其实很重要的，还有很重要一点是，医学本身其实也非常重要，特别是医疗类博物馆哦。那医学的知识跟医学行动之间的关系，其实整个医学各位应该也都很清楚，它就是理论跟临床之间的辩证，它不是只有实验室。但是它也不是只有经验，它是这个实验室跟临床这个经验当中的一种辩证。所以我们怎么去谈这个辩证当中，怎么处理人？到底什么是人？到底什么是健康？到底什么是疾病？我在医学社会学里面有谈到什么 illness、disease， 对不对？我举个字，玩一个字的游戏。disease 这个字，如果你把它拆成 dis-ease， 其实就代表两个世界观、两个宇宙观。disease 就是偏离了舒适，它就是整个希腊的医学平衡的传统。你的身体不舒服是偏离舒适。disease 如果是这种有一个 local 在地方有病灶那种感觉的话，它是比较像今天的病理学的那种概念，这个地方有问题。所以有了这样子的体系之后，你可以看到某个文化、某个时代，它所相应的医疗处理形式是不同的。那一个身体多种解释，我们怎么去看待这样子的不同？那这个是我们现在的身体观。以前有外国朋友问我说：“你们台湾的人哦，到底什么时候去看中医，什么时候看西医？”我们答不出一个好答案，对不对？但是自己都会，没有人会去找西医调身体的。你们要调身体，不会去辅大医学院，一定会被骂，被轰出来。会笑的人一定就是知道我在讲什么。所以这是不同。那我们怎么去呈现这种我们纠杂的医疗文化？我们有西方的科学医学的传统，跟东方的甚至医疗宗教的传统在里面。那这是我们真正的现实。我们即使科学医学 dominant 没有错，但是那个地方其实没有跑掉。我们怎么去？要不要去面对这样子的真实的情境啊？那另外一个是。比较像刚刚提到了，科学知识特别是在实验室，它其实是一个非常重要的知识生产的地方，啊，那它其实是一种，它引导了某种世界观，或是它决定了某种观察身体或观察自然界的方法，那个就是科学方法，我觉得那个也是非常重要的。那有时候我们太熟悉，反而不知道它是一个很特殊的方法。科学其实是有门槛的。那个门槛怎么去呈现出它的特色，然后在什么时代突破了什么？我觉得从这个角度来谈的话，就不会只是像过去的那种只讲成果，啊，就某个时代好棒棒，另外一个时代也很不错这样子，而是它有真的一个脉络，可以知道当时这个东西是在面对什么样的问题，在什么物质条件之下跟概念来组合起来，成为一个知识推动的一个单元哦。那这个的确都是需要新的研究才有办法去谈出来这些东西。那简单来讲，我认为医学历史跟医学伦理跟医学理论或是哲学不可分。然后对博物馆的医学类博物馆在呈现这些物件的时候，它有开启不同视角的一个机会哦。那我刚刚有提到，医学很特别，它是一个实践嘛哦。所以它有很多的理论，包含医学人文或哲学方面的理论，再加上某些的行动。那行动就有很多的 skill 的部分也在里面，或是具体的 embodied knowledge 也在里面哦。那这个东西，我们该不该在博物馆里面去想办法呈现出来？那我会这样想，还是回到刚刚提到的说，我把博物馆视为一个公共领域哦，公共空间，所以它是一个知识的沟通的平台，它不应该只是有医学知识的沟通平台，它应该也是医学人文或科学人文的沟通的平台哦。那另外以博物馆来讲，我们在成大博物馆，我们也把自己当成一个博物馆学的实验室，因为就像我刚才讲，瑞士这些欧洲古老大学，他们的先天的限制就是东西非常多，整理不完。那我们既然东西不多，然后馆舍相对像科博馆那种馆舍，我们又算小，科博馆容不下一次的失误， 可是大学的博物馆如果弄得有点糟，你就偷偷卸展，不会有人骂，对不对？立法院不会来骂。那所以你有很高的犯错几率，而且大学里面就像有一点类似那个当代艺术馆，你有时候夸张一点的，大家都觉得很正常。所以大有机会在大学的博物馆的某个小小的空间跟某小小的计划里面，把这些比较 radical 的想法放进去尝试哦。那我觉得我们是在做这件事情。那我刚刚很高兴看到那个明天的一个 program， 跟我们常年来的想有点类似，因为明天的 program 是用痛嘛作为一个发想，要去策展，类似那样。那我们也经常在思考，因为没有东西，或者有些东西是看不见的，比如细菌、分子这种东西不容易看见，这种东西怎么展？或者有些概念、理论到底怎么展？啊，那痛有点类似，就是痛这件事情到底要用什么样物件去说话，用什么的活动去衬托？我觉得这是有非常多的机会哦。那刚刚的演讲有提到非常多的那个科学知识的部分。那我们没有那么多的设备的时候，我在想，我们到底能用什么样子的去呼应这件事情啊？这个还是从没有东西的角度来谈啊。那如果从那个角度再回来，我们现在的很多的机会，我们到底有没有可能在那个地方看到医学人文？我举一个例子，因为以前有个研究生写过乌角病，那个时候我们在讨论，我们就说，各位有机会可以去北门看看乌角病馆，我们就讨论一件事情，说你有没有想过，这个乌角病博物馆，因为主要是王金河医师他捐出来的那个地方，所以王金河医师的角色非常重，那也无所谓，他就是一个，他真的是奉献多年。那我说除了那个之外，这个博物馆，第一个对病人到底代表什么意义？其实我的学生写完乌角病的论文的时候，他说他最后去访谈的医师还看到乌角病人，所以乌角病防治计划结束，乌角病还没有。那这个博物馆对乌角病人的意义是什么？对乌角病人的家属的意义是什么？对没有乌角病家属的北门人的意义是什么？对我们这种天能国的人到北门去看一次的意义是什么？其实，在那个博物馆里面，老实说看不出来这多层次的可能性啊。那我们有没有想要发挥，让他去回答刚刚那些问题？还是我们认为这样就是一个好的博物馆？那我还是要强调，他接受到我们两重的信任，那投注了一些心力下去，要不再加值一点点？我觉得这是我们应该要想的事情。那我后面简单讲一下，因为就讲一下说，以台南来说，我们曾经在设想这件事情，我们能不能去说一个故事，去策展台南？现在大家都很喜欢用这个概念叫策展哦。前一阵去谈一本书叫那个德意志一个国家的记忆，他就是之前大英博物馆的馆长，为德国等于说策展德国啊。那我们有没有办法从医学人文的角度去策展台南，发现医学台南？发现医学成大。那我简单讲，其实我们在我们的想法当中，我们第一个把成大医学院这件事情就是一个展品，因为成大医学院之所以会在成大，那个时候跟中山厂，不管怎么样啊，它其实台湾经济发展跟健康发展的一个很重要的南北平衡。其实台湾整个发展都是在南北平衡的概念底下产生，直到从台南有了台南高工，一直到之前的5年500亿，都是在这种南北平衡的底下哦。那这也是南部医学中心，所以你透过这个在台南这件事情，其实就要讲台湾史、台湾医疗史。那能不能这样讲？怎么说啊？那另外一个是你常常看到的，可是你不知道它后面其实可以牵连到非常多的医疗文化的问题。右边那个比较容易，那个是器官捐赠，所以如果你看到它比较容易讲器官捐赠跟医学伦理跟生命的议题。左边那个比较不容易，那个就是一个简单的雕塑，放在护理机前面，我故意把它照出来。它那个雕塑叫做招娣，就以前人家生弟弟生不出来，都是生女的，生到什么招娣来娣那种的招娣，然后就是一个孕妇。其实这个雕像放在护理学系前面，我觉得非常的有意思。 你在那边可以上2小时的课，因为你可以讲性别的历史，招娣这件事情，讲台湾的性别的历史，你可以讲怀孕这件事情的医疗，可以讲妇产科，可以讲怀孕妇女在台湾的种种的东西。所以你透过一个点，大学大有机会去勾勒出一些，有点像 hyperlink 出来一个东西啊。那有没有这么做？多多少少有，可是还不是我心目中那样子。那这个都是你平常可以看到的东西，你只要多一层次再去说的话，好，最后一章。那另外一个是冲突题，这也是就在那个是一个希波克拉底试验啊，那他们都会在那边发那个例试，然后就进入临床。这个在旁边那个广场一个小小的木牌，就是爱是医学真理。那重点是那个说的是帕拉塞奥苏斯，他其实就是一个非常革命性的人物。那为什么在一个很主流的视野旁边放一个很革命的人物？我觉得我去访问过，虽然那个本来的意思并不是这样，可是我觉得他这个冲突的确提醒了一些事情啊，就是在主流旁边有一个很颠覆的人在那边，随时提醒了一些知识的进展的问题啊。所以我用这几张照片就是讲说，如果用刚刚那些医学人文的角度来看我们熟悉的物件，即使是如建筑或这种艺术，都可以发挥非常多，更何况那些科学的仪器。那只是我们的比较现在不从那个地方去想。那回来最后我还是要提到说，因为我们没有像爱丁堡那些那么丰富的东西，我觉得我们能想的是这些。那很多大学也有非常多的老师，各种领域的，我觉得大家也许可以有一些力量放在这边，然后跟那样子主流的一些说法互相配合，那这样我们的医学人文博物馆可能就会更丰富。这是我的想法，谢谢。
好，谢谢陈恒安老师哈。因为时间关系，是不是我们要查询时间嘛哈？所以同样的，我们把那个有问题的你们都写好的，那待会我们就还有4个那个大学校园博物馆的介绍完了，我们在综合讨论的时候再提出来好不好？那所以呢，我们在休息前的这段时间就告一个段落，好。